This is not a drill. Right now, US bombers are moving into position, strategic, deliberate, and timed to perfection. And they are doing it for one reason, a Monday deadline that Iran cannot ignore. We're not talking about routine flights. This is a message with teeth. Precision platforms, long-range capabilities, and overwhelming force are all being aligned around one ticking clock. The kind of alignment you don't see unless serious decisions have already been made. And make no mistake, this is not posturing, this is preparation. Every refueling operation, every surveillance sortie, every support aircraft movement is synchronized to create the maximum effect if that deadline is missed. The window for diplomacy is closing fast. Comply, or face consequences that could paralyze critical infrastructure in hours. Power plants, bridges, transportation hubs, the backbone of an entire nation. That's not a threat, that's strategy. But here's the thing most people don't realize. Timing matters more than firepower, because when you align capability with intent, hesitation becomes a liability, and Iran knows it. They're facing a decision that could define their future, comply and risk internal criticism, or resist and trigger a strike they cannot contain. And if you think this is just about sending a message to Iran, you're missing the bigger picture. This movement is sending signals to the entire region, friends, allies, adversaries alike. Everyone watching now understands the US is not negotiating. The US is ready. Stay with me because the tension is only going to escalate. Bombers aren't just flying, they're setting the stage for the moment of truth. And in moments like this, silence isn't calm. Silence is focus. Decisions are being finalized, not debated. Because here's the harsh reality. Once that Monday deadline hits, there is no pause. There is no let's step back. The prepared assets will be used, and once that happens, escalation is no longer hypothetical. It becomes inevitable. Now, understand this. The other side is watching every movement, every reposition, and they are preparing too. Because if there's one thing you need to understand about moments like this, it's that both sides believe they are acting defensively, and that's exactly how escalation happens. Neither wants to back down first, and in the final hours before a deadline like this, that tension peaks. And here's the final point for this part. Time is almost gone. Every passing hour increases the likelihood that these assets are not just on alert, they are on the brink of action. The next moves are not warnings, they are consequences in motion. Now let's stop talking about possibility and start talking about what this actually looks like if that Monday deadline expires, because at that point, this isn't strategy anymore. It's execution, what the strike would look like. Imagine this. It doesn't start with chaos, it starts with precision. Targets won't be scattered, they'll be calculated. Power plants, energy grids, critical bridges, communication nodes, fuel depots. These aren't random choices. They're the infrastructure that keeps a nation's economy running or locked down, and that's just the beginning. This is not symbolic, not a warning shot. It's specific, targeted, designed for maximum strategic pressure within hours. No gradual escalation, no inch-by-inch buildup, a moment, then impact. Once that first strike hits, everything changes. Electricity disappears in key regions, hospitals switch to backup power, communication networks strain, industrial output slows or stops, transportation routes are blocked, critical bridges go down, supply chains are interrupted. This is infrastructure warfare at its purest. And here's the key. These strikes wouldn't just be about punishing Iran, they'd be a global demonstration of capability, a signal to the entire region, friends, foes, and neutral parties alike. It says clearly, escalation thresholds have fundamentally shifted. But stay with me, because Iran's response wouldn't be slow. It would be fast, it would be coordinated, and it would be hard. Iran's likely response, Iran has already publicly dismissed the ultimatum. They are not complying. If the US strikes infrastructure, not just military positions, Iran will retaliate, not vaguely, not symbolically. High-ranking commanders have warned any attack on critical infrastructure will trigger widespread retaliation against US and allied forces across the region. And that retaliation would not be limited. Missiles, UAVs, proxy forces in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, all activated, multiple fronts, multiple targets, maximum pressure. This is not theory. This is exactly how Iran responds when facing existential threats, and it's exactly why this moment is so dangerous. Because both sides believe they are acting defensively, and that is the perfect storm for escalation. Let's talk about impact beyond the battlefield, The moment the Strait of Hormuz is disrupted or even perceived at risk, energy markets react instantly, oil prices spike, shipping insurance skyrockets, supply chains tighten, costs for goods increase, inflation surges globally. This is not distant geopolitics. This affects your wallet, your cost of living, your economy, immediate tangible consequences for millions of people, and that's just the economic side. There's also the political ripple. Governments around the world would be forced into emergency meetings, strategic reserves discussions, contingency planning, diplomatic channels would be strained, positions would harden, and the space for de-escalation shrinks rapidly. First strike hits infrastructure. Iran responds, not one response, but multiple vectors at once, over land, over sea, using proxies, targeting shipping lanes, closing choke points, spreading pressure. Once U.S. bases or naval assets come under threat, American commanders are forced deeper into kinetic decisions, and once missiles are fired in response, decisions stop being reversible. They become reactive, and reactions in war never end where they started. Escalation spreads fast, multiple theaters, multiple fronts, rapid momentum, and suddenly what started as a single strike threat becomes a regional and potentially global crisis in hours. Here's the harsh truth. This countdown has already reached its most dangerous phase. Not tomorrow, not later, right now. We are watching a strategic pressure cooker on the brink of ignition. Global stability rides on the next move. If Iran accepts some form of compromise before the clock runs out, tension may decrease overnight. But if they don't, and those bombers go from positioned to engaged, this conflict instantly shifts from a major regional crisis to a global turning point in geopolitics. Most people are still asking, will the U.S. strike? Wrong question. The right question is, if they have already decided to, what happens next? Because when delivery capability aligns with presidential intent, as it is today, the margin between talk and action is thinner than you think. Once action begins, you don't rewind it, you respond to it. And that's a world nobody wants, but more and more are being forced to prepare for. The next 12 hours will define the course of history in the Middle East, and everyone, leaders, militaries, and civilians alike, will feel the consequences. Stay alert, watch closely. The countdown is real, the stakes are high, and the outcome is unpredictable, because when strategic intent becomes action, the world no longer has the luxury of waiting.